Hey there, I'm Richard Brandt, Monos Historian, and you're watching Stream It Now. Amazon Prime has more than 200 movies leaving at the end of the month. What are some of the standouts? Well, there's two versions of Reginald Rose's TV play, 12 Angry Men. The first big screen version was directed by Sidney Lumet in 1957. Henry Fonda stars as the lone holdout against sending a young man to his death, while Lee J. Cobb is the most ferocious advocate for finding him guilty, and in fact eventually finds himself the lone holdout in that position. Now, 40 years later, William Friedkin directed a remake with Jack Lemmon in the Fonda role, and George C. Scott in one of his last performances filling in for Lee J. Cobb. And as great an actor as Lee J. Cobb was, Scott's interpretation is absolutely heartbreaking. 50 First Dates, probably the best movie you'll see this year in which a walrus vomits on someone. I'm not even making that up. Like The Wedding Singer, the other movie pairing Adam Sandler and Drew Barrymore, it has an unexpected underlying sweetness that wins you over. And there's also a great performance by Blake Clark as Drew's concerned father. Three classics from Billy Wilder, Shirley MacLaine, Jack Lemmon, and Fred MacMurray in the Best Picture Oscar winner, The Apartment. Walter Matthau won an Oscar for possibly the role of his career, a shyster lawyer trying to get a big settlement for his brother-in-law Jack Lemmon in The Fortune Cookie, and what some consider the funniest American comedy of all time, Jack Lemmon, Oscar nominated for Best Actor, Tony Curtis and Marilyn Monroe in Some Like It Hot. Harvey Keitel stars in Abel Ferrara's notoriously sleazy Bad Lieutenant. Frankie and Annette star in Beach Blanket Bingo, David Lynch's surreal masterpiece Blue Velvet, Ben Gazzara and George Segal in the World War II drama The Bridge at Remagen, photographed by Stanley Cortez, who also shot The Magnificent Ambersons for Orson Welles. And maybe this is the month that I will finally get around to seeing that darn movie. Paul Newman stars in Robert Altman's typically offbeat western Buffalo Bill and the Indians. Crime and Punishment by Menachem Golan stars Crispin Glover as Raskolnikov, and just as a bonus, it co-stars John Hurt, who played Raskolnikov in the 1970s BBC production of Crime and Punishment. From 1958, Sidney Poitier and Tony Curtis star in Stanley Kramer's jailbreak drama The Defiant Ones. It won an Oscar for the screenplay and for Sam Levitt's terrific black and white cinematography. Look for a pretty good supporting role by Lon Chaney Jr. in his later years. Fort Tilden, an offbeat indie that won a prize at the South by Southwest Festival. Angelina Jolie in Foxfire, a coming-of-age drama which gives us one more opportunity to mourn over the fate of Angelina's breasts. Steve McQueen in one of his iconic roles in the World War II prison break drama The Great Escape. Sidney Poitier and Oscar winner Rod Steiger in the Best Picture winner In the Heat of the Night. Sterling Hayden in Stanley Kubrick's noirish masterpiece The Killing, with great supporting performances by the likes of Elijah Cook Jr., Marie Windsor, and Timothy Carey. John Frankenheimer's nightmare satire The Manchurian Candidate, featuring Lawrence Harvey, Frank Sinatra, Janet Leigh, and an Oscar-nominated turn by Angela Lansbury as Harvey's wicked mother. After way more than 50 years, it's a movie that has lost none of its capacity to shock. Robert De Niro, Jerry Lewis, and Sandra Bernhardt in Martin Scorsese's almost painful-to-watch comedy, The King of Comedy. Another one from Scorsese, his landmark music documentary chronicling the last performance by the band and their many friends, The Last Waltz. Nicolas Cage won an Oscar for Best Actor. Yes, this actually happened in Leaving Las Vegas. Gregory Peck, Richard Basehart, and Orson Welles star in John Huston's adaptation of Moby Dick. The red-headed stepchild of the James Bond franchise, produced outside of the regular series of James Bond movies, but still starring Sean Connery with music by Michel Legrand. It's Never Say Never Again. Kevin Tenney's 80s horror classic Night of the Demons, featuring Linnea Quigley in one of her most memorable appearances. Ariel Kebbel, star of The Uninvited, in the thriller New York City Underground, or NYC Underground, technically. Angelina Jolie breaking them out again with Antonio Banderas in Original Sin. Milo Ventimiglia in the thriller Pathology. Sam Waterston and Jeff Bridges in the offbeat modern-day Western Rancho Deluxe, written by Tom McGuane. James Karen and Clu Gulager in Dan O'Bannon's classic The Return of the Living Dead, the movie which added the word brains to our lexicon. Glenn Campbell lends his voice to the animated feature Rock-a-Doodle. There's two versions of Rollerball from 1975 and 2002. Gary Oldman and Peter Medak's neo-noir Romeo is Bleeding. Vincent Price, Peter Cushing, and Christopher Lee in the 70s horror outing Scream and Scream Again. Weird Al Yankovic's UHF, in which Weird Al takes over a small-time TV station. It features a surprisingly moving performance by Michael Richards as the slow-witted janitor who becomes an unexpected star of this station's children's show. The country and western classic, yes, they play both kinds. John Travolta, Deborah Winger in Urban Cowboy, and Rita Moreno, George Chakiris, and Natalie Wood in possibly the best screen musical ever made, West Side Story. Now, all told, I've got 202 new movies listed on the blog today, but as with Netflix, that's not necessarily the end of the story. Even now, teams of dedicated researchers are scouring all of the movies on Amazon Prime to look for more of them which may have expiration dates posted. I will have the full list updated daily at the blog, and I'll leave a link just for you.